Sicilian defense, opening line. The Sicilian defense has an ancient lineage. It creates an unbalanced position in which both sides have full rein for play, and allows black to call the shots at least to some extent. Knight f3, Sicilian defense, king's knight variation, opening line. White's normal response prepares d4 and avoids such committing moves as f4 or d3 or knight c3, which have their own rationale. Knight f6, Sicilian defense, Nimzovich variation, opening line. A complicated line. After 3 e5, knight d5, 4 knight c3, e6, 5 knight takes d5, e takes d5, 6 d4, knight c6, 7 d takes c5, bishop takes c5, 8 queen takes d5, queen b6, 9 bishop c4, bishop takes f2, check, 10 king e2, kingside castle, 11 rook f1, bishop c5, 12 knight g5, knight d4, check, 13 king d1, knight e6, 14 knight e4, d6, 15 e takes d6, rook d8. Both sides have had a tactical picnic, and now both sides have chances. Knight c3, out of opening book. e5 would have been in the Sicilian defense, Nimzovich variation, book opening. Protects white's pawn at e4. C takes d4, threatens white's knight at c3. Knight d5, Sicilian defense, Anderson variation, pin variation, Koch variation, opening line. Bishop f8, out of opening book. Bishop e7 would have been in the Sicilian defense, Anderson variation, pin variation, Koch variation, opening line. Moves it to safety. Bishop d3 clears the way for a kingside castle. d6 attacks white's pawn at e5. Queen e2 removes the threat on white's pawn at e5 and enables the long castle. Knight d7 leads to knight takes e6, queen a5, knight c7, check, king d8, knight takes a8, knight takes e5, castle kingside, bishop e7, a4, queen d5, c4, queen d4, rook a e1, which wins a pawn for a rook and a pawn. Better is d takes e5, leading to queen takes e5, knight d7, queen g3, g6, castle kingside, bishop g7, rook f e1, castle kingside, rook a d1, queen a5, bishop c4, which wins a pawn for a pawn. This was black's only significant error of the game, but it was costly. Black was never able to regain the lost ground, and eventually resigned. Knight takes e6, threatens black's queen and isolates black's pawn at d6. White wins a pawn. White is ahead by a pawn. Queen b6 moves it to safety. Knight c7, check, forks black's rook at a8 and black's king. Black resigns.